Welcome to Novelist Spotlight, the podcast where published fiction writers are interviewed to gather their insights and writing lessons so we can use them to make ourselves better and more effective writers. Now, on with our program. Welcome to the episode. This is Mike Consul, your host. Thank you for listening. I subscribe to the Financial Times. It's a terrific newspaper. It's published out of London. It had an unusual headline in yesterday's edition. It read, "Why we should all be reading more fiction." I was very pleased to read that, but it is kind of an unusual headline in a major newspaper of that sort. It's from a column written by Jemima Kelly, and she kicks things off by writing, "There is nothing cozier than curling up on the sofa, tucking oneself into bed, or, my particular favorite, sinking into a deep, steaming hot bath with a good novel to be transported to lands far away, times long gone, or the minds of characters strange, sex-obsessed, and sadistic. Or perhaps that's just me. I am currently reading Philip Roth." I get it. I've read a ton of Philip Roth. I love his stuff. Definitely sex-obsessed. Definitely has some strange characters in there. Brilliant writer. God rest his soul. Jemima Kelly goes on to talk about how even her own grandmother had told her never read novels before evening because they're not serious things. And that's an attitude that is so widespread, so prevalent, and particularly among men. She cites a study that from 2021 that male readers are particularly prone to that kind of thinking, that novels aren't really serious things. A study that she cites suggests that only 20% of men read fiction, while 64% of novels sold in 2021 in Britain were bought by women. Now, yes, that's Britain. I would say the United States, certainly. I brought this point up before. I'm sure that, every piece of evidence I see suggests to me that women are much bigger readers of fiction than men are. There's just a different attitude there about them. She also cites Aristotle, who said that poetry is more philosophical and a higher thing than history, for poetry tends to express the universal, history the particular. And she explains that in a history book, a narrative is imposed on a messy jumble of events. Stories are told as if they progress tidily and even rationally. And she's saying this isn't a criticism, it's just the nature of the medium. With a novel, there is no such imposition. The thing itself is the narrative. There is no alternative version of the truth. A novelist is like a magician. I love how she explains this. Although they are writing fiction, they have a certain authenticity about them because we understand we are reading something that's not real. And as Aristotle suggests, it is this that allows the characters in a novel to somehow feel more real to us than historical figures. Each represents a kind of embodiment of the human condition that we can relate to. Now, she also cites that multiple studies that have found that reading works of literary fiction, as opposed to nonfiction or pop fiction, increases empathy and emotional intelligence. And I remember saying on this podcast probably a year and a half ago that there was a medical school here in the United States that required their students, apparently assign them fiction to read, novels to read, because they wanted to increase their emotional intelligence. They wanted them to have a better bedside manner. Doctors are notorious for not having a good bedside manner, not being particularly empathetic. And this particular medical school had decided that empathy could be derived from the novel. Now, why do novels increase empathy and emotional intelligence? According to the study that Jemima Kelly cites, well, actually, there are multiple studies, not a single study, but multiple studies. It's because the reader is exposed to a much broader range of experiences and cultures than they would come across in real life, which helps them to understand that other people have beliefs, desires, and perspectives that differ from their own. sometimes differ greatly from the things that they believe. Also, a recent study published in Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin, cited by Jemima Kelly, found that those who had grown up reading literary fiction had a more complex worldview than those who had not. And the authors define this as being characterized by a few factors. One is an increased attributional complexity, kind of a tortured phrase there. These are people who are comfortable with ambiguity. Here's the real point, though. They're comfortable with ambiguity and can understand behavior in terms of complex systems. Another is lower psychological essentialism, the idea that human behavior can be explained by certain immutable characteristics. The study echoed another study from 2013, which found that those who read literary fiction had a lower need for cognitive closure. This is something interesting to me because I always like movies that don't have a specific ending. My wife likes that bow tie ending. I do not. I like to walk away from the movie given an opportunity to interpret it. Give me something to talk about when it's over. Ditto for a novel. Anyway, the lower need for cognitive closure is what she was writing about, and that is the desire to remove ambiguity and arrive at a definitive conclusion, even if they are incorrect or irrational. Now that's the many people who wants that definitive ending. How did it end? Tell me how it ended. What happened to him? What happened to her? So our columnist here, Ms. Kelly, also makes the further point that we live in a world that's just riddled with polarized politics, and that anything that can contribute to building more complex and nuanced worldviews, as the novel can do, should be embraced. And near the finish of her column, she says, "So I hope to have convinced all of you life hackers and productivity gurus that you can't actually hack the benefits you get from reading a great novel. But I am also partly writing this column as a reminder to myself to read more of them. This year I managed only 6. Next year I'm going to aim for 1 a month minimum." Well, good luck to you, Jemima Kelly, with your reading regimen. I hope you get at least those 12 novels in during 2023. And thank you for a column that reminds us about the importance of fiction writing and storytelling in our lives. For Novelist Spotlight, this is Mike Consell.